I'm Phyllis Irene Radford. Most of you know me as Irene Radford, the author. I have a new book coming out, and it's Weird West, which is very different for me. I deal with horses, I deal with strangeness, and I get to be just weird. It's called The Barefoot Sheriff. And the series, if I come up with new stories, is Riders of the Purple Sage, which is a division of the Pinkertons dealing with the paranormal. And in my acknowledgments, writing this book may have been a labor of love, but I couldn't have done it without a lot of help. Joyce Reynolds Ward came through with a broad knowledge of horses and tack and riding hats. I have to thank her above all others. She brought Elinore to life. Sarah Muller and Maya Bonhoff also contributed to my esoteric knowledge of the huge, wonderful, and quirky horses. And as always, I have to thank my patient and supportive husband, Tim. He makes certain I remember to eat, kidnaps me for healing walks, and takes me elsewhere when I start throwing things. 54 years together isn't long enough. And this book is dedicated to James Garner, Jack Kelly, and Roger Moore, the three mavericks who gave me a deep love of Western television series and dominated the genre for generations. I fell in love with all of them. So this is chapter 1, and it's the Columbia River Plateau, 1871, early autumn. A sharp pain sliced through my foot all the way to my knee. My balance slid askew as I fired my last bullet into the gut of the alien monster in front of me. She stood almost as tall as me, clad only in purple skin and translucent wings. I knew her sex with only a glance. I rarely saw females in battle. They were often shamans or witches, deadly. She wove the air with her three-fingered reptilian paws in a complicated pattern that I knew would cast a magical bolt of lightning likely to kill me. I let my sliding feet carry me to the ground beneath the fading arrow of magic. It fizzled and dropped sparks right into the small of my back. Burning agony sliced across my waist, nearly hip to hip. I ignored it as I drew my belt knife and launched it directly into the single eye of my enemy, humanity's enemy. What my bullet through her heart didn't accomplish, the sharp blade did. The one-eyed witch died instantly, with her claws waving helplessly through the air. I watched as her purple skin grayed and her almost translucent hair lost its lavender tinge. Her wing membranes crumpled into the rocky ground. Never trust a one-eyed witch. They sometimes come back to life. Or spinning purple spaceships brought reinforcements. Swarms rarely happened during daylight. Rescue ships waited until the darkest hours of the night. This dead critter wouldn't rise again. The near constant wind of the high desert plateau already began to scatter the remains into the scrub sagebrush. Dust to dust, I murmured, the only prayer I remembered from before my life became an endless battle with mundane weapons against arcane powers. This dead critter wouldn't rise again. If I wanted the bounty for this swarm feasting on 7 dead Indians, courtesy of the U.S. Army, I had to act fast to harvest the spiral hollow horn. It's growing from the middle of her forehead. Males had straight horns. A single mournful note escaped the horn, sweet and melancholy. Her death music tugged at my heart. I wanted to cry. I don't need the money. $250 per horn, $1,000 for the spiral horn of a witch. I tore the horn free of flesh and bone. Unusual how easily it came away in a single piece. The money added up fast. That only mattered if a writer of the Purple Sage, the paranormal branch of the Pinkerton Agency, lived long enough to spend it. I had a deadly reputation among my fellow agents. No one, human, outlaw, or alien, messed with Josie Blue. I'd spent 6 years in the field, longer than 3/4 of my comrades. Before that, I'd spent 4 years as a Union Army scout during the war. I never talked about my life before that and tried not to think on it too often. I figured I'd used up most of my luck. This should be my last mission. If I survived long enough to find safety, maybe a nice little town populated by people rather than the dead and dying carrion eaters littering the ground around me. They didn't eat just any carrion, though, never sheep. Those critters would pass up dead buffalo, deer, wolves, and cattle for a single taste of dead human. I braced my left hand against my bleeding back as I heaved myself upright. Every muscle twitch sent fire through my veins and dimmed my vision, but I had to stand. Crouching on the ground made me vulnerable. Elinore, my skewbald mare, nudged me gently beneath my arm. Gratefully, I accepted her assistance until I stood beside her. She'd worked hard defending me today, her instincts and a little training, and she was as formidable a warrior as me. Her iron-shod feet and big teeth behind a half-ton of weight inflicted as much damage as my 2 Colt 45s, Derringers in ankle holsters, abrasive knives, and a Spencer repeating rifle. You'll have a scar or two from this battle, my dear. I brushed her neck and nose with delicate fingertips. She hung her head, nearly as exhausted as me. Her saddle didn't sit straight on her back. Something was wrong, very wrong, with my closest companion, my friend. Guess you aren't up to carrying me. I buried my nose in her mane. She remained still as we both gathered the strength and courage to move. First things first, with one hand, I dug a worn and stained shirt from my saddlebag. No water left in my canteen to dampen the cloth. Couldn't find the blame thing anyway. Then, still clinging to Elinore with one hand and my teeth, I ripped the once fine cotton in half. I still needed the mere strength to hold me upright, so I turned and rested my back against her while I tied half the shirt around my waist. The pressure from my makeshift bandage gave me enough relief. I could turn around and dab at Elinore's wounds with the other half. Those aliens' horns were wicked sharp. They'd left some jagged cuts. But horsehide can be tough, too. The bleeding slowed already and would soon scab over. I hoped my own wound would, too. If you are ready, dear heart, we'd best get going. We need to find water and food. It may be autumn, but that sun is still hot enough to kill us both. 1 foot in front of the other, we dragged ourselves along a twisted game trail that headed up toward a ridge. I'd be able to see for miles in every direction up there, so I could choose a direction. I hadn't had a human companion in a long time, so I talked to Elinore and myself and maybe the universe, just to hear my voice, make certain I could still use it. If only this scrap of high desert offered shade from anything taller than a tumbled weed or rabbit bush, I'd rest a while. No water either, or my hat. We had to keep going, one step at a time. Thank you. That is The Barefoot Sheriff, that will be available at the Bookview Cafe.